Yep, so just a quick intro for me. I'm Sarah Henry. I have got the ridiculously crazy job title of Executive Solution Director HR Transformation, which won't mean anything to anybody. I've been in Oracle for about 6 years now, and before that worked in financial services doing all sorts of roles around HR systems implementations, including many recruitment solutions. So yeah, been around the space for about 25 years. Claire?
Yeah, thank you. Similar tenure to Sarah in terms of industry experience. I joined Oracle through an acquisition from another IT company about 10 years ago. My role is VP of HR. I lead a team of business partners who are located across the EMEA region and who map on to the senior executives that run Oracle in EMEA. So yeah, a small, fairly niche team, but we get involved in a lot of the organisation design work, a lot of the way that the business is going and how HR can help to support that strategy.
Amazing. I'm hoping that we can get Delia on. It's not allowing her to come on at the moment. I can see that she is here, so just popped her a quick message. Hopefully.
Should we kick off, Natasha, because Delia's going to talk more towards the end of the session anyway, so hopefully we can resolve that while we do the beginning bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll work in the background and get Delia online, so she might pop up on the screen for the rest of you guys. But I'll leave you to it, and I'll get Delia on for you. So thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be joined by Claire and hopefully Delia shortly. And what we're going to talk about today is to give you a view of how to create a resilient HR strategy. I'm sure you've been around on this session for a little while, but if you do have any questions, pop them in the Q&A and we'll pick those up at the end. So what we're going to do today is we worked with IHR and we commissioned a survey that IHR carried out around what's going on at the moment in the marketplace around with the whole COVID-19 and what's happening and how that's impacting around talent management and recruitment. And we had 71 senior HR decision makers in the UK during May and June answer this survey. So what we're going to do today is talk initially about the results of the survey and what interesting things have come out of it, because it's been quite fascinating to see what came out. And then we're going to talk a bit about how it's manifested itself from an Oracle context from our HR team in Oracle. We're not going to go through this survey in masses of detail, so if you do want to see more of it, then please go to the Oracle stand and you can get the whole survey results there, and there's some really fascinating stuff in there, so please go and have a look at that. Okay, so we're going to dive straight into the statistics. So firstly, some baseline information. And the respondent companies of the survey, 81% of them have had to furlough staff. So even immediately, you can see the impact that it's having across organisations, and not just on organisations, but also on people. The impact has been massive on people. And then the second baseline stat that comes out is when you start to look at the percentage of the workforce that have had to be furloughed, you can really see how significant that's been, with over 40% of organisations looking between 75 and 100% of their workforce being furloughed. So the impact has been huge. Now, if we go down into the detail a little bit more, is one of the questions that was asked was, how will you identify who to bring back to work? And there was also a similar question about how you identify people to furlough in the first place. And I think the most striking thing that's come out of this from my perspective is really the small percentage of organisations that are looking at it from a skills perspective. Only 13% are looking at it from skills, whereas 51% of organisations are looking at it from business need. And that really throws up some interesting questions from an HR perspective and a talent management perspective about how are you really identifying the right people? Are you really identifying the right skills to keep your business going and bring your business back online as we hopefully come back out of the COVID-19 situation? To coupled with that, the other big interesting statistic that came out was, and again, a bit of a shock for I guess for us working in an IT organisation, is that only 26% of the respondents said they were using an HR system to help manage redeployment of people. And it shows a huge amount of that has been done manually through spreadsheets and very manual processes that will be incredibly time consuming for HR departments. And some of the organisations that I work with on a regular basis are talking about weekends and weekends of time manually keying furloughs into HR systems and payroll systems to get this all managed. So a huge impact around skills and a huge impact around the lack of technology and data to support them. So on the flip side of that, though, what we did get from the survey was some really interesting and innovative ideas that organisations have been working with to try and see how they've been managing the situation. I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but you can start to see the real people element coming out around how that's been managed and what people have done in a really creative way to try and make the people impact, minimise the people impact as much as possible. So what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about business resilience, and I guess that's what we're here to do, is dig into this and start to talk about how you build business resilience. And what we talk about here is that in the normal way of the world, in business as usual, HR departments spend a huge amount of time planning for and managing risk. And that could be something as broad as reputational risk. So, for example, are we seen as an equal opportunities employer? Right down into operational risk. So keeping the workforce qualified to do their jobs properly, or what would happen if there was a fire or a flood or something like that. Right down to nitty-gritty details of things like how do we manage segregation of duties on a particular business process. So there's hours and hours are spent by HR departments managing, controlling and monitoring risk, and it's very often a manual and time-consuming process. However, as we can see in the cycle here, events do happen, although not always as often as significant as the one we're currently living through. And at that point, when an event happens, we do have to swing into business continuity mode. Sometimes if it's a fire or a flood, we might have a robust plan in place for that particular event. But other times, and I would imagine many are like that just now, we're having to respond a little bit more on the hop and work things out as we go along. But what's the important thing here as we come out of this business continuity mode as well is that organisations need to respond to that. They need to think about how they're going to replan and reorganise as before, off the back of that business continuity, before we go back into the business as new normal. And obviously what we're doing right now is the change is so huge as a result of the current situation that many organisations are having to think about how their whole entire strategy changes and their whole business model changes, not just how do we update our risk planning and management processes. There's significant change required to make this happen. So at that point, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to introduce Claire now, who I'll bring you back up onto the screen, Claire, so we can see you a bit more. Oh, we've got Delia twice now. That's a bonus, isn't it? So Claire, from a real life scenario, what are your observations on how HR leaders are creating some organisational resilience?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And again, good afternoon to everyone here today. Well, indeed, the past few months we've all faced unprecedented, extraordinary circumstances. And I'm sure that collectively as a community of HR professionals, all of us are working tirelessly alongside our business leaders. And I'm sure that we haven't missed a beat. We've really been at the centre of a lot of the work that is happening to mobilise employees and to really make sure that the business continues to operate. As I was thinking about this question, I looked up the dictionary definition of the word resilience, and one of the points is it's the ability of a substance or an object to spring back into shape. Now, in my view, we won't be springing back into shape, at least not into the same shape. As HR leaders, we need to find what the new shape is. We need to understand what a business is going to look like. It'll have elements of uncertainty, but we need it to be strong. We need it to be employee-centric, and we need it to be purposeful in all of its people strategies. So I do think that uncertainty will continue to be the new normal, at least for our foreseeable future. And I know that HR leaders are going to be at the front and at the centre of making sure that the new organisation, in whatever shape it will be, will continue to operate with resilience.
Brilliant. And how have Oracle HR responded then specifically to this crisis?
Well, what a busy time for all of us on this call, I'm sure. So if I take the focus into Oracle, our cloud computing, our business is really engineered for these type of circumstances. You know, frankly, this is what our systems are designed to do. So if I look at the first step, which was how do we take our entire organization and segue them into working from home, it was actually relatively smooth. We had the infrastructure, we have the technology, and we had the tools to make it happen immediately. And we instigated that on a worldwide basis. Now, if I step back, our tools, our HR tools did much of the heavy lifting. So as the pandemic, we could almost see it sort of moving across our business, across the globe, starting in APAC, moving through parts of EMEA into Western Europe. And as the pandemic took hold across these countries, we very quickly deployed our HCM health and safety module internally. We also made sure that our customers who used our system had that module free of charge. And through the likes of yourself, Sarah, the product development teams, we designed additional reporting capabilities. We use those internally, and we also shared those with our customers. So from a systems side, we were immediately able to identify anyone who was off sick, anyone who was on leave or out of the office. If you overlay that with your global travel information, which we got through a single service provider, we could see which employees were outside of their normal destination. So we were able to identify firstly who may be vulnerable, and we could put instant support mechanisms in place to prioritise them. Of course, as you move through, you then need to track incidences, you then need to understand the impact to employees, to their families, and obviously then the impact that has on our own facilities. But I would say as an organisation, we were decisive, we executed fast, and we executed globally. But pivotal to that were really the systems that provided us data that was essential, and it will continue to be essential to our decision making.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. I think it might be good to bring Delia into the discussion now and maybe drill down a little bit more into talent and recruitment. So, Delia, well done for getting on. That's good that you've been able to join us. Could you maybe just tell us a little bit about how Oracle have dealt with employee redeployment during the crisis?
Sure, Sarah, and happy to be here. I hope now I only appear once, although I almost been 3 times from laptop, phone and computer, so luckily with technology. To answer your question, from a timing perspective, the pandemic coincided with the transition between fiscal years for us, which is historically a time where we see more internal movement. That was definitely the case this year, plus more. Part of our talent advisory team changed focus from external recruitment to internal redeployment. Like all change management, the focus is on people, process, systems, as well as reporting. Oracle talent team had to ensure the internal focus was able to deliver insight and partnering and resources to all parties. The process we implemented had a couple of steps. We started with selecting recruiters as business partners to map to the hiring organizations. And also we created cross-functional teams with HR, total rewards, operations, and of course, hiring managers. We also hosted kickoff calls for the hiring organizations, explaining the process. We identified the skill gap, and we did a detailed skills and interview criteria, which were very important to ensure fair and compliant selection process between candidates, and as well job requirements. Bespoke reporting using our technology based on anticipated questions, data usage, was key, together with a constant review of our processes and reporting. The rapid repurposing demonstrates the ability to adapt, which then was and can be embedded into our operating practices for best practice internal hiring. The benefits of everything that I described can be summarized into 4 major areas, which is candidate experience, hiring manager experience, bespoke reporting, and of course value. Oracle Talent Team leverage experience of best proactive process, candidate experience, and pipeline management to ensure effective collaboration with parties held to account where needed.
Brilliant. And so the internal market has been a really, really key area for you, but what are you seeing across the external recruitment market from an Oracle perspective?
I think external recruitment market is as dynamic as always, but is definitely going through some challenges during pandemic. And we can all see fewer available roles on the market, but we also see an increased number of applicants, increase volume, not necessarily value at all times. And also relevant candidates are less open during current times to changing jobs, or I should say they need more convincing. And the last point, not all companies are or were digital ready at the beginning of the pandemic. In terms of our own, of Oracle's external recruitment team, the only adjustment we had to do was to move all types of interviews to virtual interviews, as historically we maintain one face-to-face for each selected candidate. Also, what I want to mention is that Oracle's talent advisory team is by definition a veteran in home working, and there was no real adjustment needed. We had a process and technology already in place, and we require limited customization as we were already set up as a cloud team. We did have to have, though, a higher emphasis on skills like self-discipline, agility, communication skills, and of course, technology savvy for all types of roles. We also are more focused on building pipeline and forecasting future skills needed. And we add and we need more touch points with candidates and future candidates to address job security focus. To conclude with, in general, numerous changes continue to impact the market, which results in growing high-tech adoption. Candidates and employers who have the ability to stand out via their technology adoption would manage to either get a job if they are candidates or hire faster if they are looking to hire and adapt to the ever-changing market.
Cool. And can you explain the elephant picture for us?
The elephant is actually the candidate, and the little people around are the recruiters, and it relates to the need to have more touch points with the candidates and to show more care.
Brilliant. We're zookeepers then.
Yeah.
Excellent.